So like I said, thank you very much for joining. This is the July Ultima's monthly licensing webinar with myself, Ian Gerard. I am one of the Microsoft licensing specialists here at Ultima, and you can see my details there. So please let me know if you have any questions kind of following this. You can always, please do contact your account team, contact your current licensing overlay or whomever else. But please always feel free to come directly to myself. There is an option to add questions as we go, so please pop them down and I will answer them if I can and ignore them if I cannot. The level of this webinar is going to be fairly high level, so I'm sure every organization is going to have their own unique challenges, so I'm sure they're going to be relevant for yourself. And again, I would encourage you to contact us to talk through how these changes or how these impacts, how this may impact you and your organization. Predominantly, we will be looking at the Microsoft E5 level of cloud licensing in this webinar. So we'll kind of cover off what is that E5 level against E3 and what's included, what is not included, what are the tipping points, and how does this all fit together in Microsoft's all-up strategy. I'll then be looking at another key topic, another key area, which is the move from Skype for Business towards Microsoft Teams. Truly, what does that mean from a licensing perspective, as well as a strategic product one as well, but predominantly from a licensing perspective. And as I was talking about a little bit before, I'll then turn the second half of this webinar into a little bit around what the recent news is from Microsoft's, certainly in light of their new financial year starting on the 1st of July. Ideally, we'll look to get through this webinar in about half an hour. Like I said, it is being recorded. We may go on for longer and I may finish sooner, but we're more than happy to come and deliver this one-to-one to yourselves. And like I said, there will be chance at the end to cover off those questions. But first things first, like I said, predominantly this webinar is around that Microsoft E5 level of licensing. So it's a good idea to kind of cover off really what that means. Now, Microsoft love an acronym, as we know. So predominantly there's three areas of Microsoft Cloud, if you like. There's Office 365, there's the Enterprise Mobility and Security Suite, and then there's M365, if you like. I mean, I'm discounting things like Windows and Azure, but we can come on to those as well. But if we start off with Office 365, this is traditionally where you find your productivity servers, Exchange, Skype, and SharePoint. And effectively what you can see on screen there is all the different capabilities broken down into those 5 boxes, whether it's apps, services, security, so on and so forth. On the left-hand side is what Microsoft Office 365 E3 offers you. So this is where we're talking about Office Pro Plus. It's that full downloadable version of Office Professional Plus, as well as elements such as Exchange and OneDrive and Yammer and Skype for Business, formerly going to be, newly going to be Teams. All of these rich communication and collaboration tools are all part of E3. So really, what are you getting with E5? What does E5 provide? And there's tools such as Customer Lockbox and Advanced e-Discovery. You can see in the 3 blocks on the right there. But really what it boils down to, and you can buy all these as individual components, but really what it boils down to with Office 365 E5 is telephony. It is the audio conferencing and the phone system part, which really is the majority, the bulk of the E5 offering. Don't get me wrong, Power BI Pro is an incredibly powerful tool to bring those analytics to life, as well as the security side with advanced threat protection and some of the cloud app security. But if you were to look at the individual components, it's no surprise to say that all of those organizations who have gone for full Office 365 E5 are doing a significant amount with telephony. Don't get me wrong, I'm not belittling any conversations if you are looking around the security side, because obviously clearly there are organizations doing that as well. The part I wanted to cover off with this slide is just to really emphasize what's part of Office 365 E3 and what is part of Office 365 E5. And as you can see, all of these individual blocks are now part of Office 365 E3. So if you have E3, you have all of this, and you'll see elements such as My Analytics, which was formerly E5, is now part of E3. And you'll get a copy of these slides, but if you see things like data loss prevention, so you're getting Exchange Online Plan 2. You'll see things like Stream and eDiscovery and Sway, like I mentioned, which you may not use. But that top line, Office 365 Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams, those are the main tools that you're getting within E3. So when we then look at the E5, you'll see that at the top there, phone system, audio conferencing, and Power BI. Those are the main drivers. I put Power BI Pro up there just because of the cost, £6 odd per user per month, as opposed to the full E5, which is going to be around £11 per user per month. But you do have a weight of security products underneath there as well. So people will talk about advanced threat analytics or advanced threat protection or threat intelligence. There is this part of Office 365 security as well. So within Office 365 E5, you do get things such as Advanced Threat Protection Plan 2. And then as part of Advanced Threat Protection, that's where you'd find the Advanced Threat Analytics or the Threat Intelligence. So a lot of the time it is quite tricky to understand if you're looking at a technology and then you have an understanding that you might need cloud app security, or you might need the information protection plan too. You can always follow these parts down, and there are going to be part of wider suites. But part of the skill is trying to understand exactly where that component sits, and then these tiles certainly help with that. But again, feel free to always just ask your licensing specialist that question. But in much the same way, when we look at Office 365, the next capability is this Enterprise Mobility and Security Suite, or EMS, always referred to as EMS. You have EMS E3 and you have EMS E5. At that top level there, so that's E3, this is what I would say is the standard enterprise functionality, where you'll find Active Directory Premium Plan 1, so you're effectively for all of your single sign-on needs and multi-factor authentication. You've got Microsoft Intune there, all of this done on a per user basis. So that's effectively SCCM in the cloud, or where you'd effectively manage your devices and your apps. You will then have some security as part of the EMS E3, elements such as Advanced Threat Analytics, ATA, and you can kind of see the Information Protection Premium Plan 1 element there as well. But really, when you look along this, on the bottom line there, you will see that is really the E5 level that Microsoft are offering. So they are talking about Active Directory Premium Plan 2, talking about the Microsoft Cloud App Security, and absolutely talking around the Information Protection Premium Plan 2 piece as well. So traditionally, if you need to do that auto classification piece, you would need the Information Protection Plan 2, where if it was just manual, you would only need Plan 1. But much with the same slides, what I've done here, and again, please be aware you will be provided copies of these slides, broken down exactly on a tile basis, everything that's included within EMS E3. Within the Enterprise Mobility and Security Suite E3 is everything you see within that box there. But you'll often hear Microsoft talk about Azure Active Directory Plan 1, and even Azure AD Plan 1 is actually going to contain an awful lot of things within it itself. I mean, I mentioned the multi-factor authentication, the single sign-on. It's also conditional access. It's also self-service password reset. There's all these really other great tools within Azure Active Directory Premium Plan 1, which is in itself part of EMS E3. The other pieces of E3, yeah, absolutely is Intune within there. If you're running, if you have purchased EMS E3 and you are running Intune, but you do have some on-premise devices, actually the SCCM licensing does permit you to kind of manage those on-premise tools as well as effectively your Windows Server CAL, rights. So you're not getting that perpetual license, you're not buying that perpetual license. But while you keep the Enterprise Mobility and Security Suite active, whether it's E3 or whether it's E5, you get those on-premise Windows Server CAL rights, basically your address book online, and then your on-premise, sorry, and then everything else you can see within those tiles as well. But moving on in the same frame, what does Enterprise Mobility and Security EMS E5 give me? And it gives you what you can see in front of you there. It's that cloud app security, which I mentioned before, the information protection, But similarly, I mentioned now it gives you Azure Active Directory Premium Plan 2 as well. But what does that include? Well, that is exactly where you would find the privileged identity management PIM, where you have that risk-based conditional access. So if Plan 1, if E3 gives you conditional access, it's that Plan 2 is that E5, which gives you that higher level, a higher grade of security control. And again, within Ultima, we do have security and we have solution specialists, all kind of part of the service, part of the pre-sales. This is high level, like I say, kind of focusing on the licensing side. But if you want us to explore any of these elements in more detail, then please do let us know, and we can kind of help you with that either ourselves or linking up with the guys at Microsoft as well. But as you can see, once you start as a general ethos, once you start building together all these various tiles, you're going to effectively have a decision: option A, buy the individual component; option B, buy the full suite. If you're looking at Office 365, I mentioned really it's the telephony side. Certainly around the enterprise mobility and security side, when you get to E5 level, you're only really needing to do one of those tiles organization-wide to make the full suite cost effective. So really, when it comes to the enterprise mobility and security, it's not so much, are we going to be hitting enough products? It's more, do we need to have this organizational wide? And in actual fact, you will find if you want to apply any of the security rules within Information Protection Plan 2 or AD, that actually it has to be something you buy organization wide anyway. So Microsoft aren't stupid. So again, at a high level summary, once you start looking at the EMS enterprise mobility and security E5, there's one of those components within there that is of interest that you have to have as an organization. Chances are you're going to need to go organization wide. Chances are EMS E5 is actually going to be more value to you, or certainly you'd look to Microsoft to then incentivize that for your organization. The final piece I did want to cover off, which has this same naming convention around E3, E5, and just leads to a huge amount of confusion, really, to be honest with you, is this Windows 10 Enterprise license. This is the desktop. This is, you go and you're buying the hardware and it's coming with Windows 10 on there already. Brilliant. You can get that up and running. That's Windows 10 Pro. You're getting with that OEM license. You're not buying anything, no volume licensing on top of that. And that will give you things like BitLocker and elements such as that. However, if you want to then buy or upgrade Windows 10 Pro to Windows 10 Enterprise, okay, effectively what you're doing is you're going from Windows 10 Pro to Windows 10 E3. It's called Enterprise, it's called E3. Effectively, that's what you're buying. That's the first volume license you're buying. It's always been known for 25, 30 years as an upgrade license. And it still really is an upgrade license because you'd need to have that OEM Pro. And then effectively you're buying E3 on top of that. And then you're getting App Locker and Device Guard. You were getting all of those elements you can see in the top box there within Windows 10 Enterprise E3. Application virtualization, if you want to have a virtual desktop and you're using Citrix Zen Desktop, you are effectively going to need to have that Enterprise E3 license. It turns it from a device license into a per user license, which suddenly means that user can have pretty much unlimited devices. I think it's 15, but who has more than 15? Then the only element of E5, so what's E5? Well, E5 with Windows 10 is effectively Windows Defender Advanced Threat Protection, Windows 80A. Now, again, in the similar tiles along on the bottom there, AppV, conditional access, MDOT for virtual desktop access is all part of that E3. When we're talking about Windows 10 E5, we're talking about Defender 80P, and within that, that's where again you'll find that next generation protection, threat analytics, and all of those elements you can see across the top there, advanced security effectively. And we can look into this in more depth, but it is Windows Defender 80A, which is effectively Windows 10 Enterprise. Microsoft are releasing new cloud suites, so you may think to yourself, well, actually, a lot of what you've spoken about there is of interest to us within E5. For example, some of the cloud app security might be of interest as Active Directory Plan 2, but in actual fact, telephony is something that is just, you've got an alternative supplier or you've tested Skype or Teams and or it's a bit further down the transformation project, or it's not even on the roadmap. It's not even a consideration. So you'd initially think, well, okay, well, this means Ian's just said that E5 is irrelevant. Not irrelevant, sorry. E5 is not going to stack up if I'm not looking at telephony. So what Microsoft have done is they have introduced these new cloud suites, which focus just on the identity and protection elements of E5 or the compliance elements of E5, and they've released these two new suites, which effectively, if you've got Office 365 E3 already, you're hitting some of the elements of E5, but perhaps not Power BI Pro or not telephony. But you still want to you're still going to be buying a fair amount of individual components, but you're not quite hitting that break-even point to the full E5. So that's when you would, oh, I've actually just skipped on there. So that's when you would effectively buy these kind of mini suites, these kind of half suites, halfway home suites. I'm sure there's a proper, better term that Microsoft would like me to be using, but it's kind of the mini security E5 suites, which boots you from kind of E3 before you're kind of ready to do the full E5 piece. I do have another slide after this. I think I just mixed up my slides, such is life. What is off Microsoft 365? So Microsoft 365 is effectively those three elements being brought together. Office 365, the Enterprise Mobility Suite, and Windows 10. And exactly the same way, you can buy Microsoft 365 at E3 or Microsoft 365 at E5 level. I did just want to cover off that within Microsoft 365, you are also getting all of your on-premise productivity server rights. What does that mean? It means you get given the Exchange server on-premise. It means you get given SharePoint server on-premise. It means you get given the Skype for Business server on-premise. Again, not the perpetual license. You have the rights, the on-premise rights for these on-premise servers while you have an active Microsoft 365 subscription. So it's basically saying buy this subscription if you have an EA or if you have CSP or whatever, and then while you have this subscription, it effectively gives you a hybrid environment that allows you to run the on-premise servers while you make the move to Microsoft's cloud. It also offers, I should have mentioned as well, buy them all together in this suite, you get these on-premise rights, you're hitting the strategic product from Microsoft, and also you're going to be saving a circa around 10 to 15% just on the licensing cost. So it's good, it's good. You could have Microsoft 365 E3 and then just buy EMS E5 on top if you wanted to. You can have M365 E3 and then have the individual components on top if you wanted to. There's a whole variety of ways of cutting it, really. And this is probably the slide I wanted to do before that one, but these are the mini suites. They're before the full E5 suites. You will get a copy of these, but I wanted to point out really, if you look at orange is the Office 365 color, and if you think blue is the EMS color, and then green is that desktop color. As you can see, the identity and threat protection suites, these mini suites, actually contain elements of E5 some from Office 365, some from EMS, and some from Windows 10. So this is what I'm saying. Well, you're interested in some of the security elements of E5, like threat intelligence, Azure ATP, and actually you want Windows Defender ATP. Then buy that mini suite. It'll be far cheaper than doing those individual components. So there is some logic and well, there's a lot of logic, and there is actually a lot of value in buying the suites and Microsoft's naming conventions and acronyms, but there really is a strong logic behind it. And all you do is you work through and work out what you need as an organization. And once you know your technical strategy, we can make the licensing strategy fit to that in the most coherent and cost-effective way. Moving on to Skype for Business and this move to Teams. And this is certainly something which has been, crikey, it's been rumbling around for a while, but now we're in Microsoft's new financial year. I am being asked about it a lot. So I just thought I'd kind of cover it off with as much clarity as I can give, really. So we're coming from where to start. Skype for Business on-premise. Skype for Business on-premise is kind of still available. And even before the cloud world, you'd effectively license a server, an on-premise server. You'd license a client. You'd have the Skype for Business client, whether it be Outlet, the thing you kind of click into to start. And then each user would need a CAL, a client access license on premise. And it would always be that client access license, that CAL, which would set the user's functionality. You'd have standard, you'd have enterprise, and then you'd have plus. For example, the user just wants to communicate with people internally in his organization. That's kind of standard level. That's instant messaging, it's presence, that little button, and it's being able to see an organizational chart, and even having that one-on-one peer-to-peer internal calling. That's all kind of standard CAL. Enterprise CAL is then, well, you want to do it externally, so you want to start hosting conferences, you want to start federating with your clients or your partners. You want to be able to one-to-many conference calls type of thing. Then that is enterprise level of functionality, and the final one there is plus, which is effectively the full telephony. So when Skype for Business went online, you effectively had plan 1, plan 2. This is the licensing that sets the functionality. So in the new world, Skype for Business Plan 1, effectively at 8, it was effectively the same as that standard level functionality. Excuse me. So once again, that's the internal instant messaging, sending the messages to each other, seeing the presence when they're available. Plan 2 was then enterprise, so conferencing, one-to-many, and all that great stuff. And then the Plus CAL isn't really available with Skype for Business Online. That effectively became two separate components, the audio conferencing and the phone system. So that allowed you to effectively make incoming and outgoing calls. Don't get me wrong, you would need the call plans. On top of that, you have the local call, the domestic call plan, the international call plan. Pretty expensive. You might have alternative suppliers for that. So that's the way that it was with Skype for Business Online. Now, with this move to Teams Online, the licensing isn't changing. So within Teams, you will no longer be able to buy them as individual components. So the Teams license itself is going to be, well, you want Teams, you only want Teams, doesn't matter, you have to buy the full F1 or E1 or E3 or E5. But that's okay, because there's a lot of value there anyway, right? And in actual fact, within Teams, Microsoft are kind of trying to get rid of that Plan 1, saying, well, anyone would kind of need the Plan 2 level. But you can still get Plan 1. So if you wanted to buy Teams Online, you'd have to buy Microsoft 365 F1, which is this vastly reduced suite, designed for users to spend about 10 to 15% in front of their PC, shop workers, might work in warehouse, be out on the road, delivery drivers, that type of scenario. But that's available. That's how you'd find Plan 1. And then once you start looking at Office 365 E1, or E3 or E1 or E3, that includes Plan 2, and then obviously the full E5, which we kind of covered already, that includes all the audio conferencing and phone system. The client would be an online client, and again, if you're taking the E3 layer, you can have that locally installed. But this isn't, this is great, but what does that really mean? Well, if you were a new customer buying Skype for Business since kind of October 2018, you would have actually completely new business, not had it before, you would have been put straight onto Teams. If you were under 500 users, straight onto Teams. Now, for those organizations who are currently using Skype for Business and thinking, well, when are we going to be moved across to Teams? You do have a certain amount of control. You can determine the timing around this. Really, by the end of this calendar year, Microsoft will start pushing this out a little bit more, and kind of forcing your hand a little bit more. But certainly, for example, the Skype for Business on-premise server is still available. There's not going to be a Teams on-premise server. I think the last one was released in October 2018. But you buy a Teams license, you do get that Skype for Business on-premise server rights to allow you to manage that migration if you're an existing Skype for Business user. Generally speaking, the Skype brand is going to be aimed at the consumers, which is why there's this move to Teams, and Teams is great. We're starting to use it, and once you start using it, you realise all the other advantages. Everything just comes together as a sharing and collaboration tool. It is pretty powerful. The fact is, you don't just buy Teams. That's this is why it's not available as an individual component. They say you need the full suite. It's because you are getting all of the other collaboration tools within that to really see the power of how Teams works best, really. I did want to now come on to the elements regarding Microsoft's new financial year and what their strategy is going to be moving forwards a little bit. So some of this stuff, obviously, like I said before, this is through some of our conversations since the new year. And not everything, I need to caveat ourselves by saying, this is something we wouldn't really want to be putting in writing at this stage. A lot of what I'm going to be talking about is going to be, we believe, is going to be confirmed over the next 4 weeks once Microsoft get back from their conference in the US, Microsoft Inspire. So don't take this for gospel, but we certainly know that Microsoft as an organization, this is what this slide shows, want to simplify the commercial engagement with them. So on the left, you'll see there's been a vast array of different agreements for you as an organization to buy your Microsoft volume licensing. It's not even all of them. I put the EA, the enterprise agreement, there was the old Select Plus, MPSA, there's open value subscription, CSP, Web Direct, you could buy it on a credit card, you could buy as a boxed product, you could buy it as an as an OEM product, comes with the hardware, and each of these offerings, some would be through a partner, some would be through Disti, some would be direct with Microsoft, sometimes there'd be other value-added resellers within there. So my argument would always be this meant that there was always the right path open for you, but it was pretty quickly there'd be a huge amount of agreements a customer could spin up, and no centralization, no standardization, certainly not on pricing or on co-terming, on expiries. Wasn't a lot of logic, too much choice, really. Became an absolute nightmare, is an absolute nightmare for customers to kind of keep account of their effective license position, or even to know how many licenses they've got, agreements, and all this kind of stuff. So unsurprisingly, Microsoft want to improve this, but bear in mind they wanted to improve this for the last 10 to 15 years as well. Not that I am cynical, but the modern platform is going to be getting rid of a lot of the superfluous agreements, which you can only, to be fair, only makes sense. These are things that we know, that things like Select Plus and MPSA and Open are all being retired. I will say, Select Plus was retired back in 2008, and I've still got organizations, just a couple, I think now, buying through Select Plus. MPSA will be retired, we believe, of that thought. And then CSP, certainly EA and CSP are the two main ones kind of moving forward as Microsoft are move towards a single commercial licensing agreement. So every agreement will have the same kind of T's and C's. Some will be Microsoft led, some will be just, you do it directly, and some will be partner led. So this is all basically making it easier for you as an organization to choose how best to buy your licenses. Microsoft are introducing a new agreement, something called the Microsoft Customer Agreement. It's actually available from March 2019, specifically for Azure-only customers initially. So this is a Microsoft-owned agreement. So this is where they wouldn't, they transacted directly with you, the partner. They talk to you about it, talk you through it, manage it for you, and so on and so forth. So a partner is not involved in this at all. This is called the Microsoft Customer Agreement. It is initially for Azure-only scenarios. What we are hearing from Microsoft, and like I said, this is unconfirmed, is that this Microsoft Customer Agreement is going to grow and grow and become more and more significant, more and more of an option for organisations of a certain size. And I'm being a little tentative because I do want to caveat that none of this is confirmed. This is speculation. The idea of these webinars is to provide a high-level overview and to kickstart a conversation. But the enterprise agreement used to be available for 250 users a while ago. I should probably know this off the top of my head, but I don't. Let's say about 4 years ago, Microsoft increased that 250 user count to 500, and there was always ruminations around this was going to then rise to 1,000 users. At the moment, 100%, we're at 500 users. There's always ruminations that it's going to rise to 1,000. Now, maybe we're not so sure about that. It's really because of the development of CSP, which is this online only, predominantly online only, massively flexible, partner driven, partner managed new licensing agreement. Ultima ourselves, we've made a huge and absolutely huge, massive investment here in regards to portals. I'm going to talk about that in a second, our CSP offering, but I just want to make the significance around CSP as a growing agreement. Right now, you know, it's per month, per user, you commit every single month to your cloud licensing. Those numbers can increase and decrease. You can do some price locking for a year. I'm going to talk about that again in a second as well. So it's hugely flexible agreement. What Microsoft are looking to do, you know, but it was very transactional, a lot of flexibility, great for customers starting, but perhaps not providing the greatest long-term value, wouldn't allow you to buy all your licenses. Not all licenses are available on there. Some of the price points are a bit all over the place. Like I say, fantastic agreement, growing, but not fully fit for business as it was. But that is absolutely changing. All licenses, all cloud licenses are going to be available on the CSP platform by January 2020. We understand it. Also, we expect there's going to be more on-premise products coming onto the CSP agreement. I mentioned price locking before. One of the benefits of the EA and having a true enterprise is having that predictability of cost and a great price point secured for a long term. And CSP is going to be offering that 3-year price lock very, very soon. We are going to see more on-premise products come onto the CSP agreement, such as Windows Data Center, your RDS cows, those kind of on-premise products that support a cloud infrastructure, a cloud environment. So as the MPSA fades out, you probably use the MPSA for your on-premise licensing. As that kind of fades out, we will see the CSP being able to use as a platform for those on-premise products. The ongoing strategy for Microsoft, and again, I do mention this tentatively, so please don't take, be aware of this. Microsoft will effectively say the on-premise products that go into the CSP, what about all the other ones? What about Visio or Windows Server Standard or all of our traditional on-premise products? Microsoft are effectively going to make those available as license only. You won't even be able to potentially purchase software assurances. They're really looking to drive home, pushing all customers to the cloud. They're effectively going to say, fine, you want to buy Windows Server Standard, or you want to buy the Exchange server or Visio. Yep, you can, but you can only buy it as a single outright purchase, and we're not going to give you any kind of support around that license. This is all speculation, but this is what we're seeing to them really, having these conversations, really driving, especially from the 1st of January 2020, really driving that CSP model. And the next one is that we believe you're going to start seeing Microsoft forwarding the Microsoft customer agreement for enterprise agreement customers kind of up to that level A, potentially saying that, well, actually, Mr. Customer, we believe if you are a level A EA customer, then actually, and your renewal is kind of after January 2020, then we believe that Microsoft are going to start pushing the CSP as the most cost-effective and highest value agreement structure. So that's going to be a really interesting place to watch. Microsoft are effectively going to say, if you're a level A EA customer, and again, I must have said this 1,000 times, I'm carrying this massively. Nothing is confirmed. We're waiting to hear from Microsoft. Level A EA customers are effectively from January 2020 not going to be given any account management, not going to be given any discount, not going to be given any concessions, not going to be given a Microsoft account team. You can use the EA, but that won't even be transacted through a partner. So you'd effectively entirely be on your own. This is pretty drastic, and I do not believe this will be the case from 2020, but this is what we're being led to believe. Nothing's confirmed, but it is something that is really important and critical, going to be a major critical move. That CSP from 2020 is going to be absolutely the best agreement for you as an organization if you are a level A EA customer coming up to renew after January 2020. All I can do is encourage you to engage with us, and you can engage with Microsoft as well. They will deny all knowledge of this, or they'll say speak to your partner, or make ruminations. They won't necessarily deny it. It all kind of depends on how quickly and how feasible the CSP model gets up and running, right? That's what it's all about. Microsoft love making these grand statements and making these great plans, and then like to roll back from them as well. That's certainly the behavior we've seen over the last 10 years. Nothing, I would say, leads me to think this is any different. This kind of aggressive stance, and this is what we want to do, is fine, it's great. Do need to be aware of it. This is why I'm talking about it now, but would just encourage you to be aware of the changes, understand what the options are, and let's talk it through. On that, you'll be pleased to hear, as if by magic, Ultima launched our new CSP platform on Monday the 8th, which now sounds like a horrific sales plug, but it's because we've been aware of these changes coming, and we do know what we're doing. You will find on our CSP platform, you do have this enhanced support. Effectively, the new platform makes it so you can have your own self-service portal. You can go on, whether you're using Azure, you can see your spend within Azure for that month and increase or decrease it. Put a pay to anything, put a pay to people who shouldn't be running workloads or doing things in not the right way. So that whole kind of Azure management portal is pretty fantastic. Effectively, you'll be calling, if you've got a CSP agreement, you can manage it yourself, or you can call up Ultima, you can kind of manage the whole piece for you. The whole CSP conversation is going to continues to be very big, but we will be very pleased to show you how we're approaching this. Enterprise agreements aren't going anywhere. If you are over 500 users, enterprise agreement is still the right agreement for you. What I'm saying is that CSP isn't going anywhere. Masses of funding from Microsoft for partners. Masses of funding from Ultima within the CSP platform. Microsoft will start pushing customers towards CSPs, and we're only going to see that increase probably from January 2020. Right now, CSP isn't 100% there for everything that you need. So you do have a mix of agreements, EA, CSP, a little bit of MPSA, and that's probably going to be the case, certainly for the next 6 months. But major changes coming, which we're expecting Microsoft certainly to announce after their conference, Microsoft Inspire. But this is what we're seeing. And please, what I would really do is encourage you to speak to your account team, speak to your licensing specialist, or come and speak to myself. We do think this is going to be a major change. And that effectively brings towards an end for the webinar, just as my slides have frozen as well, which is wonderful. So that's perfect timing. Are there any questions at all, please? Yep, absolutely. So pushes on the CSP. Yeah, so I didn't quite see who's asked that or when they asked that, but absolutely. But it's great. Once it's fit for business and everything else is on there, it's absolutely great. Every organization is going to have different tipping points, whether it's looking at E5 licensing, whether it's looking at Teams, whether it's looking at the CSP platform, whether it's looking at an EA renewal. Every organization is going to have a different tipping point. please contact us to help you find out what yours is. Thanks very much for your time. The slides will be made available, and let me know if you want any follow-up on this. But for now, thank you very much and goodbye.